Do you recognise this?
I wasn't really a Britney Spears fan, but you obviously were.
No, I hated her. But this is very appropriate. So toxic. In fact, can you just put these safety glasses on? I'm a bit worried. It's got the rubber gloves. Like that little guitar bit. That you toxic. Okay, I really had a gut full of that. I can't switch it off with my rubber gloves.
Yeah, I can't do it either.
Okay. Oh, thank goodness for that.
Don't the safety goggles look really good?
They're pretty hot, actually. Hey,
They're from our soap making workshops.
Yes. Now, welcome everyone. It is Monday night again, and that means it's time for Kim's Top 5. And we miss you every week until we get to this point, and then we're all excited. So today we're fully equipped to talk about our special Top 5, which is...
Chemicals to avoid.
Kim's Top 5 toxic chemicals to avoid. So, and why did you pick this one tonight?
So, as some of you probably know, Jeremy and I watched the Stink movie on Netflix the other day.
Disco bug.
And and I think it's quite topical to be talking about chemicals to avoid.
Yep.
So, it just got us thinking with watching that movie. So, If you haven't seen Stink, it's on Netflix, or otherwise I think you can download it on, just go to the Stink website. It's great.
Okay. And just by way of introduction, if you've never seen us before, this is Kim Thompson. She's a Young Living leader. She's a clinical aromatherapist. My name's Jeremy. I'm not really anything. I'm just here to make her look good.
I don't think we've ever done an introduction before. We just expect people to know who we are.
Well, no, exactly right. Just in case someone's randomly wandered onto this accidentally and they're going, where the hell am I? That's where you are, Kim's Top 5. So we do this every week. We love to get your comments down below. So anyway, welcome. So let's get straight into it. I can't see anything out of these safety glasses, which makes me not really that safe. So let me just put on my normal glasses. All right, we're all good to go. So give us your top 5. Or do you want to talk a little bit about stuff in general?
So I guess...
What's happened to my hair? Sorry.
You just always distract me. So the thing about chemicals is that we're exposed to them every day. So it's about trying to avoid the ones that... like where we possibly can avoid them. I mean, there's some things that you can't do. Like if you live in a house with paint on the walls and carpet on the floors and you're filling your car up with petrol and, there's certain chemicals that you cannot avoid, right? They're just in the environment and, you can do your best to. You can certainly buy low tox paint and carpet that hasn't got, BPA and other nasty chemicals in it and things like that. But, if you rent or you can't do anything about the chemicals, then you could be in trouble. So
Britney Spears was actually right. I don't know. I've never looked at the lyrics, but she actually says, I'm addicted to you, but you're toxic. And I reckon that sums up so neatly our modern life, doesn't it? We're addicted to all this stuff. Some of it we even know it's not good for us, but we use it anyway.
Well, and, for some people, they don't know that it's toxic.
Yeah, true.
I mean, certainly when I met you, you had a lot of products that were toxic and you didn't know until I told you.
I had a sneaking suspicion. But I mean,
for those of you who don't know, when I met Jeremy, he had a drawer full of a certain male deodorant, which shall remain nameless because we don't name...
What, the links? Oh, no, we don't say it. Oh, no, we can't talk about it. Anyway, it was... lips are sealed. So,
I mean, you think about the average woman is, the average woman, not some of our young living women, but the average women are exposed to about 200 chemicals a day in the personal care products that they put on their skin. So you think about the things that you might put on every day. So you probably start the day by having a shower and washing your hair. So you've got some chemicals in, there's chemicals everywhere. Even water is a chemical. It's a chemical constituent, its chemical name is H2O. But there are harmful chemicals in some of your shampoos, your conditioners, the face wash, the scrub that you've used. Then you get out of the shower, you brush your teeth, you put your deodorant on, you put your moisturiser on, your skincare, whatever you spray on your hair, whether you paint your nails, whether you've got fake tan, perfume that you've sprayed on, all of those things contain potentially harmful chemicals. And what happens with women, because they they're exposed to so many of these harmful chemicals. A lot of them bioaccumulate in the body, and like you think about putting deodorant under your arms, the chemicals from that, because you're using antiperspirant deodorants, they don't allow you to sweat, and you don't get rid of some of those nasty chemicals, and they accumulate in your the cells under your arms, like your lymph nodes and the breast tissue and all of that kind of stuff. And over time it builds up. And
that's the answer, is because some people say, look, they wouldn't let us use them if they were harmful. Or the other argument is they're in such small amounts and you're only using them, a tiny bit, it doesn't matter.
Well, there's a couple of things. One is that a lot of them bioaccumulate, and I'm going to talk about some that bioaccumulate today and some that don't.
Yep.
But a lot of them do. So they get stored in the body. If your liver is overloaded, it can't deal with them. So it literally sort of wraps them in fat and stores them somewhere in your body, and you accumulate them over time. But the other thing is that there are so many chemicals. Like, I think in something like after the end of the Second World War, there was already something like about 190,000 chemicals on the market. And every day that was increasing by 1,000 or something. So we have got so many different chemicals that the governments can't test every single chemical. So what they do is they rely on the manufacturers who produce the products that use these chemicals to do their own testing. And what often happens is they might test in isolation. So they might test one chemical, or they rely on the tests that have been done by other chemical companies on one chemical. Yep. But we don't know often what happens when chemicals are combined in products, or that they might test their own product, but then you're using another product that's got other chemicals in it, and those chemicals all interact, and that's what causes health problems. So
and often, do you know what they do? The best way they work out what's not safe? They wait until people start getting sick and dying, and then they go, oh, yeah, I probably shouldn't use that one.
Well,
and I'm being deadly serious.
Yeah, and we've certainly seen that, and in some of the one in particular that I'm going to talk about today, it's been on the market for ages, and it wasn't until people started to have problems with this particular chemical that the government in America actually cracked down and said no more. So so I guess just because it's sold in shops and it's in products doesn't necessarily make it safe.
Yep.
And the other thing is that there are certain levels of a product that make a product safe, and what happens is if, as I say, you use one product, then it may be safe. Well, generally regarded as safe is the term that they use in America. But when you use another product that might have that same ingredient and another product, and you put them all together, you might be exceeding those safe levels. So there's a lot of things come into play with this stuff. So in general, a lot of you have heard me say, if I wouldn't eat it, I don't put it on my skin. And that's so true, because at the end of the day, a lot of these chemicals, about 60% of the chemicals that we put on our body actually get absorbed into the skin. And, they get into our bloodstream within 20 seconds.
Okay. All right, let's name names. Let's give us your number 5.
Okay, so number 5 is propylene glycol. Okay, now I want to tell you a little bit about how you can look up some of these chemicals. If maybe you have a piece of paper and a pen and you can write this stuff down. But I have a few different apps on my phone, and I have a book. Actually, I was going to get the book out, but I forgot. So the book that I use is called The Chemical Maze, and it's a great little book. I flip through it and I look up the chemical that might be in the product that I'm going to use, and it gives me a smiley face, a frowny face, or a I'm not sure, uncertain kind of face. And you might even get 2 unhappy faces, and that means wow.
Or that one where the face has got lumps all over it and there's like pus coming out.
I don't think there's that face,
okay.
But anyway. So there's the Chemical Maze book. You can get lots of different books. There's a Chemical Maze app. There's the Environmental Working Groups app, and you can go onto the Environmental Working Groups website, and I'm going to talk about the Environmental Working Groups scores, because they give products and they give ingredients in products a rating, and that helps you to work out whether you want to use it or not. And
is there what about the Dirty Thoughts app?
The Think Dirty. Think Dirty app.
So how embarrassing! I think I downloaded the wrong app.
Of course you did.
No, Think Dirty. Yeah.
So any of those apps will help you look up some of these ingredients and what they do and things like that. So propylene glycol, I've started at that one at number 5, and the Environmental Working Group actually give that a 3. Okay, so 0 is
good or bad.
So 0 is the best.
Okay.
At 3 to 10 is the worst.
Yep.
So 3 is about fair. Okay. The reason why it is on my list isn't because it's a carcinogen or anything like that. It's on my list because it's a skin irritant and it's in a lot of products. It's basically a skin conditioning agent, so it's in a lot of moisturizers. When I used cloth nappies when I had my little girls, and I also made my own baby wipes. And when I went away on holidays, I wanted to take some disposable nappies, which I ended up buying some compostable, that's right, isn't it? Yeah. And some baby wipes. And when I went looking for baby wipes in the supermarkets and also in the health food shops and all of that kind of stuff, even the natural organic ones contain propylene glycol because it was a skin conditioning agent, so that when you wipe your baby's bottom, it actually is not too harsh on your baby. But I started to look into this ingredient and I thought, I don't want to put that on my baby because it's a skin irritant. And the last thing I want to be doing is wiping certain private parts of my baby with propylene glycol. Yep. So that's when I started to make my own and putting natural skin conditioning agents into my nappy wipes rather than the toxic ones. Propylene glycol is in a lot of cosmetics, okay? It's in a lot of things we put on our skin, even makeups and things like that. It's actually in some medications. It's even in some foods, okay? At one stage there was a lot of controversy because a certain large food chain was adding propylene glycol to their blueberry muffins because it is odorless and it's colorless and it doesn't have a smell. So it takes on the smell of other things. So a lot of cheap essential oils will contain propylene glycol because it's a liquid and it's colorless and odorless. So if you add a scent to it, then you don't need to add very much of the scent and the propylene glycol will take on that particular smell. But what they were doing in these blueberry muffins was they were adding a tiny little bit of blueberry and using the propylene glycol to actually disperse the blueberries through the blueberry muffins. Wow. It's also in e-cigarettes and it's even in some medications. So it's not the worst, and that's why I've got it as number 5, but it's certainly something that I wouldn't put on my skin, and I wouldn't put it in my children's skin. I would much rather use a natural moisturizer or natural oils and things like that, carrier oils, to moisturize the skin rather than using propylene glycol.
Okay, so propylene glycol number 5, and it was just a 3.
Yeah, and it doesn't bioaccumulate. Yeah. So I was talking a little bit before about the things that accumulate in your body. This one doesn't. It actually does break down within 48 hours of putting it on the skin. However, babies and children, actually, it doesn't break down quite as fast as the 48 hours. So it's in their systems for longer. So I certainly try to avoid it. And the other thing that it does is it encourages our skin to absorb other harmful chemicals that we might come in contact with. So you're actually opening up your skin to absorb more harmful chemicals that you might come in contact with if you use propylene glycol.
Wow. Okay. Number 5, propylene glycol. Let's keep going because we got a lot of stuff here.
Sorry.
So.
Okay, number 4 is sodium lauryl sulfate.
Yep.
The Environmental Working Group actually give this, where did I write it? Oh, I don't know. Someone will have to look up Environmental Working Group. I think this might have been a 4, but it's quite low as well. It's basically a foaming agent, okay? So anything that you've got at home that foams up, more than likely it contains sodium lauryl sulfate or sodium lauryl sulfate, any of those kind of derivatives. So you'll see SLES or even ALS, which is the ammonia version of it. Yeah. And that's what encourages the products to foam up. So originally, sodium lauryl sulfate was an engine degreaser, okay? and because it's cheap and it's effective, it really is an effective detergent. Like, we all know that it cleans really well and things like that. And because it's cheap, a lot of companies put it in products. It comes from coconuts. But the thing is, when they actually make sodium lauryl sulfate, so we know that coconuts are natural and things like that, but what happens is it actually gets contaminated with a byproduct in the making of the sodium lauryl sulfate, and that's where the harmfulness sort of comes from, is that byproduct from the manufacturer, like from the manufacturing process of sodium lauryl sulfate. Now, for me personally, this is probably my bugbear, because for years as a teenager, and I know my mum suffers from the same thing, we used to get eczema, okay? And we would get it on our head, we'd get it on our eyebrows, on the backs of our neck, and I would get it in between my fingers. And as soon as someone said to me, stop using shampoo with sodium lauryl sulfate, guess what? Went away. I didn't get any more. I used to have such a rash on the back of my neck, on my head, and I used to get it between my fingers from the dishwashing liquid. Yeah. So if I go to your house and you don't have Thieves dish soap, I have to use the rubber gloves, because I get serious dermatitis between my fingers. And a lot of people do. And the thing is that the research actually says, and this is from the American College of Toxicology, that it's as low as 0.5% of this ingredient in products actually causes the contact dermatitis and allergens and things like that. So a lot of people are actually allergic to this, but because it's so common in all your shampoos, conditioners, body washes, your bubble baths, you're sitting your kids in these bubble baths that contain this ingredient. Toothpaste, mouthwash, all of those things contain it, and a lot of cleaning products. Now, before I mentioned that the American College of Toxicology says that it's as low as 0.5%, well, in a lot of cleaning products, it's as high as 10 to 20%.
Wow.
So you can imagine that, that the cleaning products are also causing skin irritation and things like that. And that's why they tell you to wear gloves and stuff if you're using cleaning products. And a lot of people don't. So
I had to stop using once I discovered sodium lauryl sulfate, I was in my toothpaste. I stopped using toothpaste which had it in. Instantly stopped getting cotton mouth. I used to wake up every morning feeling like a bird, something had died in my mouth. Stopped using that, and that totally changed it. So it's everywhere. Yeah. And it's affecting you.
And the other thing is that, particularly for children, it has been linked to eye development issues and even to eye irritation. So, you're washing your kids with these shampoos and it's running down, it's getting their eyes, and some, shampoos actually contain antiseptics, and that's why they can say that it doesn't make children cry.
Antiseptic or anesthetic?
Anesthetic,
Anesthetic. That's even worse.
It basically stops them from being able to feel it, so the eye doesn't get sore, but it's still got those same ingredients that make it foam up and they irritate the eye and all of that kind of stuff. And the other thing about sodium lauryl sulfate is it's actually a xenoestrogen, so it mimics estrogen in the body. So the cells in our body, so estrogen is responsible for cell growth. It gets into the cells and makes them grow. So if you've got any sort of cysts or fibroids or tumors or anything like that, it's going to feed those. And so, xenoestrogens are hormone disruptors. They mess with our hormones and cause all kinds of nasty problems for men and women. So it's certainly something that you want to be cutting out of the products that you use.
And that's a bit of a theme that's coming up with these other ones, isn't it? I suspect, xenoestrogens.
And that's because, I want to cut all the hormone disrupting chemicals, especially out of my girls' lives. I don't want them to be exposed to all these things in their childhood, because they're going to get exposed to so many more things in their adulthood. So,
alrighty. So, wow. Okay, so number 2, SLS.
Sorry, number 4.
Number 4, sorry. Yeah. Okay, let's go number 3, one of your all-time favourites, I know.
Okay, so number 4 is triclosan, okay? Now, what amazes me is that in America, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, has actually put a ban on putting triclosan into products, so what they call the counter products, the antibacterial products. And they've also put a ban on 23 other antibacterial things. So triclosan is in most antibacterial products. So your antibacterial soaps, your wipes, your hand sanitizers, all of those things that are antibacterial contain triclosan. The Environmental Working Group give it a score of 7. Okay, so we're starting to get higher. Basically, it's also in some cosmetics too. Short-term animal studies have actually showed that it's linked to thyroid problems, and it actually decreases some of the thyroid hormones that we produce, which is really interesting because I see a lot of nurses and people using, their hand sanitizers and things like that. And so, over time, these triclosan does accumulate. There was even, there's so many studies. They're currently even studying a link between triclosan and certain skin cancers. And one study that was done on Colgate toothpaste was actually, it found that it did reduce gingivitis. But now in the US, as I say, they're actually looking at making them take it out of all these products, because even though it might do one thing, it's the effects, the harmful effects that, that we're more worried about.
As Mrs. Marsh would say, it does get in.
That's right, but Mrs. Marsh did a different toothpaste, I think.
Did she?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
but anyway, the FDA ruling, you can look it up on the FDA website and get the exact wording, but pretty well they've said that from now on, these companies that use triclosan need to, prove its safety before they can include it. And the other thing is that the FDA actually don't think that it is all that effective in cutting down bacteria. And if anything, what it's doing is it's actually stopping things like antibiotics from being as effective against bacteria. So, so we want to sort of get rid of triclosan out of our products. So, if you're using certain toothpastes or wipes or spray cleaners or things like that contain triclosan, then maybe you might want to look at swapping to something natural.
Let's be honest, if even the Americans think it's dangerous, then...
Yeah, and it's still allowed to be in products here in Australia.
Yeah, that's just crazy. Alrighty, so number 3, triclosan. Number 2, this isn't just one. Well, this is a group, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a group.
Okay,
so number 2 is parabens, okay? So these will be listed on your products as methylparaben, ethylparaben, propylparaben, butylparaben, isobutylparaben. And as far as the Environmental Working Group go, they give each of these a different number. So your methyl and your ethyl parabens will be a 4, your propylparabens a 7, your butylparabens a 7, and your isobutylparaben is an 8. So they're starting to get way up there. Yeah. Parabens, once again, are xenoestrogens, so they mess with our hormones. One of them, they're basically the synthetic preservatives in products. So if you're buying natural products and they go off, I've certainly bought Young Living face cleansers and, I've put it in my toiletry bag at the back of the cupboard and haven't thought about it for a few months, and when I pull it out next time, it's off. And if it smells off, it is off. And you know why? Because it doesn't contain these synthetic preservatives that are causing all these problems. So the parabens can be in deodorants, moisturizers, shampoos, they can be in all kinds of different cosmetics. Basically, there's a study that was done in the UK at the University of Reading. I always get to say Reading, the University of Reading, and they found that parabens, such as mostly methylparaben, was found in a lot of breast tumours. They can't conclusively say that it caused the breast cancers, but what they did find was that the methylparaben was found in a lot of breast cancers. And the other, there's another study by a research place in Tokyo, I think the Tokyo Metropolitan Research Laboratory of Public Health, if I've got that right, and they put parabens on rats and they actually found decreased sperm production. So you want to make sure that you're getting rid of these parabens. So as I say, they'll be listed under all different kinds of names in your products, and they are hard to find, and sometimes they might just say preservative and a number. So you've got to get kind of wise.
People they're getting pretty sneaky about this stuff, aren't they? And actually the next one is even sneakier when it comes to getting toxic chemicals into your life. But anyway, we'll come back to that. But yeah, So you got to read the.
Well, and the thing is, as a mum, I used to spend hours reading labels on food and the products I was putting on my kids. And so in the end, I just find that Young Living just makes it easy for me. So I don't have to be reading those labels all the time. I trust the company. I know they're not going to put any of these things in there. And the other thing is that Young Living is totally transparent in their labeling. So I can read it and I can put those ingredients into the Environmental Working Group's Skin Deep app or any of the other apps I talked about at the beginning. So
okay, so number 2, parabens, especially avoid them if you want to breed rats. That's the message. Jeremy. Okay, number 1. So drum roll. This is serious.
All right. So number 1 is fragrance. And we mentioned at the beginning that we're doing tonight's in honour of the movie Stink. Now, if you want to know more about what fragrances do, then you should totally check out the movie Stink. It's amazing. Basically...
You'll cry.
We cried.
We cried.
Fragrance can be anything up to like 500, 1,000 different chemicals can make up the ingredient listed on the label as fragrance. And companies can do that and call it, and they don't have to label all the individual ingredients, no matter how toxic they are. They don't have to include them on the label because it comes under trade secrets. Okay, so they say that the reason why their product smells this way is because of the mixture of all of these 1,000 chemicals, and so we don't have to put those on the label. We will just put fragrance, and they get away with it. And the thing is, we can't then look up what the chemicals are doing to us and our health, because then we have no idea which chemicals, which thousands of different chemicals make up the term fragrance, and that's what's scary. So a lot of these chemicals that are listed under the broad term fragrance are phthalates, which once again totally mess with our hormones. The phthalates are in these products because they're fragrance dispersers, so they actually disperse the fragrance, and then all the various scent chemicals and things like that. And all these fragrances actually emit things like formaldehyde and other nasty, they give off other nasty ingredients as well when you use them. So,
and this is not just a woman's problem here, is it?
No,
I mean, I know you said that women put, slather on the toxic chemicals, but for men as well, you'll find phthalates in men's deodorants and also
shaving
particularly shaving stuff, and also aftershave, all that stuff.
Hair gel, mousse, anything that basically has a fragrance. So your perfumes, colognes, air fresheners, like those toilet sprays, things that plug in the wall that give off a smell, cosmetics, fabric softeners. I mean, like, I did a workshop yesterday, and the people, like Amanda, I'm sorry to W in Amanda, was talking about how she used to put fabric softener things in her cupboards to give off a scent. And I know a certain person who also used to put them in his car for that reason as well. And they're so toxic. They give off such, that's why they smell so bad. I can't even walk down the laundry aisle in the supermarket because of all the fragrances, the mixture of chemicals. They're in candles, they're in laundry detergents, anything that has basically a really strong fragrance, and they list it as fragrance. Some companies are open and they'll put what the chemicals are that make up their fragrance, but as a general rule, I try to avoid those products.
Well, and as a general rule, companies try to avoid having to disclose what's in their products, especially when they know it's not a mystery, is it? This stuff, like, we know that parabens are bad, we know that phthalates are bad, we know that triclosan's banned in America, so it's not rocket science.
Yeah, and the thing about fragrances is that they give off a whole heap of different symptoms. So they can be really random. Like, for some people it could just be sneezing. For others it can be a sore throat. I mean, on the Stink movie they have this kid who's a high school kid, and a particular deodorant that's sold in America causes him to go into anaphylactic shock. And so he can't go to school because if a kid at his school is using that particular deodorant, then it causes him to go into anaphylactic shock and he needs an EpiPen. It can also cause things like dermatitis, eye issues, breathing problems, headaches, even spikes in blood pressure, fatigue, a whole heap of different things that sometimes we might just put down to something else, but it can be linked to the fragrances that are in the products that we're using. So,
okay.
Anyway, I've talked enough. That's me. They're products to avoid. So, best thing is, I reckon,
what are you doing?
I'm going to give that to you.
Oh, I thought you were going to steal my thunder.
Yes, I was going to do your top one. So, you don't have to go through and throw. That's what I did. When I was pregnant, I was like pregnant woman Godzilla, and I just went through the whole cupboard and got a big box, and I threw everything in it, and I went, "That's it. We're not having any chemicals in our home." And my ex-husband was like, "Well, what are we going to clean with?" I'm like, "Water." That's it, water. That's the only thing that we can clean with, because this is just terrible. We can't have these products in our house. They're all terrible. And but these days, I either make my own stuff, or better still, because being a time poor mum, I just buy the Young Living products. So if you're new to this, the best thing is to choose one particular room of the house and work your way through. So maybe you want to choose the bathroom, and you look at your shampoo and conditioner, you look at your skincare, your moisturizer, your deodorant. Just pick a couple of products that you can ditch and switch, and choose the natural ones instead. You might choose the kitchen and go through and get some a thieves spray cleaner, or a dish soap, or go down that track. Start making your own natural dishwashing powder. Maybe you choose the laundry and you ditch the laundry powder for the thieves one, or maybe it's your makeup that you want to switch out, which can, most of them contain phthalates and parabens and things like that. So, start to choose one part of your house. Maybe it's your cleaning products or whatever it is, and start slowly and replace them over the months. And I heard this really interesting quote on a webinar that we were watching the other day, and it was that, if you eat one piece of broccoli today, will you feel any different? Well, no, you probably won't. But if you ate broccoli every day for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, then you probably are going to feel some difference. So it's the same with getting rid of the chemicals out of your home. If you start and do that every day, because it's not what you do once in a while. Like once in a while we might go and we might get exposed to some harmful chemicals, but it's what you do every day that counts. So start and get rid of this stuff out of your house.
True.
Over to you. Sorry, I'll stop rambling.
No, it's good. I think it's always good to talk about broccoli. We've talked about the difference between snot and broccoli.
Which is?
You can't get kids to eat broccoli.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay, so, it's serious. We don't want to scare you, but the problem is, when you start researching this stuff, that's the only way you can respond, isn't it? Like, it does scare you, so it makes you want to do something about it. So that's why we're talking about it. Thank you very much. I'll tell you one thing. Well, actually, I'll tell you 5 things that you won't find in this little bottle. You won't find any phthalates. No. You won't find any parabens. No triclosan. It won't make you foam at the mouth. There's no sodium lauryl sulfate. And you certainly won't find any propylene glycol. Do you know what you'll find in this little bottle of Shutran? Have a guess.
What, Jeremy?
Well, it's an interesting blend. First of all, you'll find raw masculinity. There's about 80% raw masculinity in there. You'll find a hefty dose of testosterone. Some raw... Oh, stop saying that. You'll find some raw sexuality. I'm not saying there's actual testosterone in here. For goodness sake, woman. And just a hint of sensitive new-aged man. So there you go. Anyway, the point is, like as Kim said, it's from Young Living, and one of the things I love about that is all their products. Damn it, you can just trust that there's no toxic crap in them. So that's my thing. And I've been non-compliant again. There's no testosterone in here, okay?
Thank you, Jeremy.
But there is.
And on that note,
see you guys.
Good night, guys.